Sometimes, though, just launching or just wrapping an existing test harness isn't enough. Sometimes your organization has a different type of testing that you're going to want that we don't support. So, you want a special type of UI testing, the way that CompuWare makes a product called Test Partner, and they actually can do some functional testing around your UI. And so what they did was they said, wrapping an existing test harness isn't as interesting. We want people to actually get inside Visual Studio. So if you do this, what you're able to do is we have this Visual Studio type interface. You take that type interface, and then you build on top of that the same way we built on top of it, and you build your test types. And they're very much in parallel with the MS test types. On top of that, you can then build your own editing experience. So if you want your own editor inside Visual Studio because the code editor isn't cool enough for you, you can literally build your own editor. Like the web test guys didn't show a code editor, right? They have like a tree view that you can look at. That's a custom editor. If you had a custom editor that's a form, we can show that inside Visual Studio. So you can literally make your own editing experience for your particular test type if the code editor or an existing editor isn't what you want. So you can extend it and add your own editor. On top of that, if the execution process isn't the way you want it, you can actually write your own adapter. We have an adapter model that, our process talks to the adapter that then launches the test. You can make your own adapter if you make your own type that then knows how to talk to your particular test case. So let's say your test case involves disassembling a DLL and reassembling it at the assembly level with, ASM or whatever. You want to do that sort of thing. There's no problem. You can, as weird as that case is, we don't stop you from doing anything. You can write your own adapter. You can then load whatever kind of test you want. Once you've written your own adapter, then you're literally able to go ahead and have any kind of result from inside Visual Studio. So if you have a special type of result, you want to parse that result information from your test and pass it to Visual Studio, your adapter knows what Visual Studio expects and knows how to put that data inside Visual Studio, but your test doesn't have to. So your adapter does that work for you. Then the actual details we showed you, with like the unit test details earlier, those details are then actually customizable, and you can actually have your own details information. So literally, when we're talking about building your own test type, you can go as deep as getting to the results level. On top of having your own editor, your own adapter to run your test, you can have your own results information and show that results information as detailed as you want. So when we look at Visual Studio, by adding your own test type, it means that your source code can show up inside Visual Studio, your test case can show up in the basic authoring world, your test summary can then show up inside the results window. It looks just like it would if it was a built-in type. The users get that benefit. Then if we look at the Test Explorer that we talked about earlier, your test case can show up inside that and can be managed with the Test Explorer very easily. We talk about details, and this is an example, by the way, of what the load test details really do look like. So this was like taken from a screenshot that we had, and then we put it in this slide. We couldn't get them running because we didn't have the machine set up the right way. But that's what they literally look like. Tom was talking about the graph, and the counters are along the bottom. And so this is an example of a custom editor. Believe it or not, the team that wrote that lives in North Carolina. They're not actually inside the same EDT team. They're actually part of the Enterprise Visual Studio. They wrote this extension, and they went ahead and made this custom results viewer. And so literally, your results viewer can be that detailed. It can literally be as graphic as this particular guy, and as interactive as this particular guy, just like just like we did here. Or it can be as simple as a unit test form, the way we showed you the unit test details. So you have all the power we had when we invented our types. We've given you that framework inside Visual Studio to make your types. Let's talk about test execution. So from a test execution standpoint, we've talked about creating categories. The metadata is stored on a local disk. It's shared via source code control. It's not really designed for huge team use as far as people ask us, do you put all that data in a database and share it between thousands and thousands of users? The answer is no. We actually think of the test case as being inside, the test metadata as being inside source code control and shared across a team, a mid-sized team. I mean, if you had a couple hundred developers, this is probably going to be okay for you. If you go beyond that, 10,000 developers, in an internal Microsoft crowd, 10,000 developers across all of Windows, that's actually doable, right? Testers and developers across Windows, that's a lot of folks. So, internally, we would definitely talk about the idea that, hey, if you're talking about the scale of a Windows team, there might be some issues here. And we have some ways to solve that internally, but externally, that's where we're at right now. So we're going to talk really quickly about managing your test cases. Instead of switching, we're just going to quickly jump to my tech ed bits. we're going to jump to the Test Explorer. And what we can see here is that we have a bunch of tests inside Test Explorer. And so I'm going to go ahead, click on Categories, right-click, create a new category. My new category. Then I'm going to create one more category, just to show that it's truly hierarchical. So now we have a guy embedded in another guy. I'm going to grab the uncategorized tests. I'll grab maybe these 4. I'm going to drag them into my new category. There they are. Go back to my uncategorized test, grab the other 2, and I'm going to put them into the second category. Click on the first category, there's my set. Click on the next category, there's the other 2. Now I want to very quickly, you can imagine that this was very detailed. We can go ahead, it's just like, almost like a file explorer. I right-click, new category, like I make a new directory, I drag some files inside that guy, and now they're categorized. And tests can belong to more than one category. So if you want to put them in different categories around, you can do that as well. Then very quickly, if I want, I can still switch to the flat view. I can click on all tests, see them. So if I'm not a big user of categories, I don't want to I don't care what the categories are. I just want all the tests listed. I can do that.
Can you execute by category then?
Yeah. So I can quickly click on the category. I can click this guy underneath, and we see there's tri-state checkboxes here. So the guys above it are gray to show you that something underneath is selected, but not everything. If I want to check the topmost category, it all becomes completely clear as we've checked everything now that's underneath it. So just to kind of show you that we can do it, we'll click just the guys in the lowest category. We'll go ahead and click select, go ahead and say OK. And now those tests are going to go ahead and start running. And they're going to fail because we haven't actually finished them. But there they are. So very quickly, we can drop down to Test Explorer. We can create some very quick categories, put some tests inside that, and get the kind of categorization that you're going to require if you have a pretty large set of tests. Very straightforward stuff. So moving right along, we can also do local execution with integrated debugging. We talked about edit and continue earlier. So you can literally walk into your dev code from your test code. So you can set a breakpoint in your test code, hit F5, hit that breakpoint, and literally step right into your dev code to truly investigate those failures. And to set your breakpoints in your dev code and really get that working. Whoa. Let's show that. So internally, we didn't give this to the tech ed guys, but remotely, we can also execute remotely. So we can take those tests and distribute them across a bunch of machines. And so literally speaking, if you're in your dev environment and you have one do you want to go hit that light switch, the one on the override there? Thanks. You have the far right.
Far right.
All the way, yeah, that's got it. There we go.
I think you have to hit it up.
There we go. Yep, thanks. So if you execute on your local machine, if you're a singular developer, that's great. When you move to a lab scenario, a lot of times you want to execute across multiple machines. One controller, 10 machines at one time. So I want to execute, especially in the load cases, I have 15 tests that I all want to run across 15 different machines, and I want to actually, control the types of load that's being executed right then. I can do that. So literally, I can do the pool of machines instead of just one singular machine. So we already kind of showed you local execution. We're going to skip that demo. So quickly jump into results. So the results can be taken and stored into a repository. So once you've developed those results or run those results on your local machine and you have all of that information, now how do I take that information and share it with the rest of my team? We take that data, we stuff it into the repository, and then the rest of team system can actually see that data from that repository. And so the type of report that you can see from our operational store is this type of report, a build report that shows this particular build and this particular run of tests with all of these tests executed, their results, and then the actual comments given by different users. So literally 15 different testers can be testing a build, post their results to the store, all the information is stored for you, and you can literally look at it broken down by tester and by run and see exactly what was going on. Now let's talk about integration. So we've talked a lot about integration. We talked about how important that is across all these SKUs. Let's show some of that. So some of the roles that are addressed by team server or by team system, include the project manager, the architect, the developer, the tester. We have all these different roles that are basically built on the foundation of Visual Studio, the Visual Studio IDE, which makes use of all these different integrated servers. As we know, a lot of these guys today, like the architect, the developer, the tester, already have information. Like the project manager, we have the information on, say, a content server somewhere. The project manager has that information about the specs. The tester has the bug information in a bug tracking database. So, at the base level, one could argue, well, we already kind of have non-integrated information, but the trick is, how do we integrate across all these different roles and all these different operational stores? So what we've done is we can assign work items across the entire, across all roles in the lifecycle. Those particular work items can then be assigned to testers and developers, and those work items can be tracked against defects and against test objects. So like we talked about earlier in the demo, we talked about maybe doing a call graph down the road or whatnot. Literally, you can see from the business analysis and the different artifacts that were created, specs, features, requirements, all the way down to the actual code model, and we allow you to then have this integration between them so you can see this. That's all good, but what does it give you? So inside Visual Studio, what this looks like is literally your bug tracking and your work item tracking is inside the product. So it's not this separate app that we actually have to see work items assigned by someone else. We don't have to actually launch some special report wizard or whatever. It's all right there inside Visual Studio. We can see the active work items, the active bugs. We can see actually who assigned what to whom, what the percentage of completion is, what the status is, and we can assign it to other members in the team. We don't have to use a different tool. We don't have to go to other people. We can actually assign this to them. And also, we've allowed third-party partners to plug into this as well. Like Borland, we've allowed to plug into the work item stuff. So we can actually see Borland using some of the project management stuff and actually using some of their tools inside Visual Studio and with Visual Studio.
Caliber.
Is it, what's it called?
Caliber.
Yeah, Borland Caliber. Yeah. So then, once we talk about actually getting all this inside Visual Studio, and we want to leverage all this data inside the integrated system, we actually want to be able to drill down and use the all the information from all the roles-based operational stores, the content server, the bug database, the check-in system. We want to actually produce a set of reports. So we look at, we're inside a particular, a particular management room, and we want to see, as a set of managers, we want to see what the bug trends are. We can see that. But we also, someone could argue, well, bug trends, you could go to a bug tracking database and see that. True, you could see just bug trends inside a bug tracking database. Another report we could show you is daily bug activity. So we can actually show you what's been going on today, to show you kind of what bug activity is going on. Once again, you could argue, well, either this is inside Visual Studio, I could have just went to one source, the bug tracking database. You're also able to do these types of reports. Bugs against code churn, against tests. So today, we do something like, you're in a management meeting, and you say, are we ready to ship? And a lot of times, we have to go to 3 or 4 different sets of information, 3 or 4 different stores to see that information, to see whether we're able to ship. And do managers really going to go through all that? I mean, it's inconvenient and it's hard to read. And so what we've done is take all that information and make it easy. So at a management meeting, if we were all in a management meeting right now, and we're trying to determine, should we ship? Well, we can see that, the currency converter, if we look at like active bugs, which is kind of this column, and we look at found bugs, well, the found bugs and the active bugs are pretty small. We look at the new test failure rate, it's kind of small, so currency converter might be ready. We look at shopping cart, a little higher, but still acceptable. We look at store inventory, and we see a problem. We have new and changed lines of code, which is from code churn, that's source control. We then have uncovered code from code coverage data. So this information, an aggregated report across the operational stores, is now possible inside Visual Studio. So if the managers are sitting there, they can look at some of the operational store reports. They can also then look at the actual aggregated reports. And clearly, if we're trying to make a decision right now on whether we ship, just by looking at this chart, there's an open question. We're going to want to talk to the lead, the store inventory lead, and ask them, what's the problem here? What's happened? Has something happened recently? Or is this just a hole in our plan that we need to hit before we ship? And that's one of the biggest integration points that we have. So finally, we kind of asked this question, what can a test be? We have a lot of arguments on the internet about, can it be this? Can it be that? Well, we've shown that it can be your code plus an EDT VS type, a VS test type, integrated with source control, integrated with project management, integrated across all these team system components, along with third-party tests and your own types of tests. And then all of this fully integrated into one tool. So we'll stop there. We'll stop short of going into the V2 stuff. So, what do you guys' basic feedback and what do you guys think in general?
This is awesome.
Yeah?
Yeah, this is.
Is this more than you thought you'd see? I mean, this is more.
Yeah, this is a lot more than I thought I'd see. I mean, it really is that the follows on the whole theme of Weeby, kind of like tying everything together, do more with less. Stay inside of Visual Studio. That's the one place to go for all of your development. Conceptualized, I think it's great. I'm really looking forward to using it.
Now, I know that conceptually we kind of disagree a little bit about unit testing being where it should be. And I've heard
piece of
and I've heard your argument. Especially you guys were making the point earlier that maybe there's a stripped down thing, but you can at least see from our side of the house, like we don't want to break the integration, right?
Right, and preserving the integration is very, very important. I'm totally convinced of this after seeing all the pieces fit together. The question is there value in a smaller set?
Yeah.
You're an individual developer. You're working at home. Maybe you're not even a developer. You're somebody who's interested in being a developer. So you've got your desktop and you work on it in the evening occasionally when you're as a hobby. You absolutely want to be hooking in all that test stuff.
Absolutely.
I think. And you don't really need the tests. You don't need the code coverage. You don't need the bug tracking. You don't need all of that. But it pulls your stuff up to a much higher level of professionalism.
I mean, I definitely hear your argument. That's something we're going to have to consider. I mean, but like you were one of the strongest pushers on that particular point. But I mean, at least from seeing this feature set we've talked about integration-wise, you can see why we kind of said, at least in the start, let's start with integration because clearly we need to get all these tools together, right? But I mean, I think I hear your point, which is, hey, maybe there's something small.
You can decouple one part of the unit testing, and that can be separate and still provide that opportunity for, I don't want to call it the lower-end product, but the entry-level product to support that. And it actually might benefit you from a business point of view, because unit testing is still not widely adopted. As it gets more adopted, though, you want to be able to have it. It becomes a natural upgrade path. Because if all of a sudden I can see the framework to start unit testing, but now I need to be able to cover off code coverage, and I need the ability of having that integrated with my source control, and I want to integrate that with my bug tracking. Like the ability to, there was one there where you were showing how during a test to be able to integrate a report of a bug right then and there. I see that. I very clearly can see why everything's being coupled together like that. But I think as a starting point, there's two different things we're discussing here. The awesome abilities that are tied in with integration and unit testing. And then unit testing is just one component of it.
Yep.
But if it can be decoupled, I think that is a very natural place as a base for developers to get going.
So totally buy that point, but blog-wise, you have to make sure that, hey, we're not just marketing guys, beating you down. I mean, there's definitely some power here we want to discuss.
The package is fantastic as a full package.
Let me ask a question that I don't know. With the integration with the bug tracking and with the code, source code control, can that be used to external products that might already be in existence?
Yeah, so there's definitely some integration points now. We don't own the source code control and the bug tracking stuff. I know some of those guys are extensible. I'm not exactly 100% sure, how, if you can pull out one and put in another.
Like, can we integrate something like Subversion or Perforce in as our source? Because in an organization that already has source control, it might not be easy to move over to something. So from knowing that from Microsoft's previous history with source control hasn't always been the greatest.
Yeah, just to kind of note that. So the source code control that we're shipping now is actually a kind of a newer source control system that we've written from scratch. The guy who made that his name's Brian Harry, was the guy who was like the dev manager and the product, the actual owner of the CLR. So he's like actually taken it as a big project to go and kind of make the right kind of source control system external. Right. So I mean that's a big deal for us. So I hope you'll see a huge benefit from the source control system that we are shipping. It shouldn't be. We know Visual SourceSafe has its place, but it's on a very small set of teams. We're hoping this is beyond that. But to answer that question, I mean, I think there will definitely be some integration points, but I also think that, definitely I think that the integration will be tightest probably between, especially in V1, between some of the, the more integrated features between like source control we ship and the bug tracking we ship.
Yeah.
Well, there'll be integration points that our partners will extend on, but clearly Microsoft products will kind of be, they'll probably work the best together to begin with.
It totally makes sense. Just for organizations that already have a process in place for source control and even bug tracking. You look at externally, there's lots of products out there now, and the question is what's being used. So you're looking,
The interesting problem we face, we totally understand the notion of having your existing frameworks. We'll hopefully make a way to help you convert from those in some cases. But in a lot of cases, if you keep those that way, then their stores become their stores. We can't integrate and you can't do some of the ports. So you'll have to pick operationally what you want integrated into this and what you don't want integrated.
well, this
into
might
this.
get Joel dragged up to the next level.
Yeah, the tough part about that is, though, is that there are some organizations that do not have that degree of operational freedom.
Yep.
And especially if Microsoft technologies have not penetrated a large organization to a degree, you may not have the opportunity to even think about changing source control. And it would be very, very useful to be able to integrate a large part of this.
I think you'll get some integration because Visual Studio today integrates with a lot of these tools.
Right.
But I think that you won't get as integrated, especially in V1. We'll see where the line is.
Yeah.
We definitely understand that scenario. I think we all get that. So
to pull away from the integration issue for a second, the one big hole that I saw, or the feature that I was looking for and didn't see, was the counterpart to the web testing that applies to Windows Forms and MFCs and
yeah, so that's probably not the first time we've heard that particular question.
I figured I wasn't the first one to think of it.
It's a big question. And it's a big problem with things like Longhorn on the horizon, the next version of Windows, Avalon. There's a lot of UI models that are out there today, existing ones and new ones down the road. We definitely want to do something that isn't just for today, it's for tomorrow. And so Tom is actually looking at that, working with our partners. There's a lot of partners out there that provide a lot of UI experience.
And so talking about one.
Right, CompuWare.
Yeah,
CompuWare.
So they've already got one for you.
Exactly. And with that, with the way, as Jason pointed out earlier, that we're providing the same ability to create test types, just like we've created test types, then anybody who wants to come along and add
So you create a
UI
forms
automation
test type.
tools, forms, test type, exactly.
That's right. So
Easily added.
we're definitely looking at our partners to step in and help us out with that. We've already kind of had guys sign up to do that. So look for those pieces to be able to be add-ons to Visual Studio to be able to get on the web somewhere, from a third party. So definitely look at that. And in the horizon, we'll see what happens. But definitely we've heard that. And at this point, we just think it's probably more beneficial to kind of leave the platform open, and we'll see how it goes down the road. So, any more? General feedback? Yeah?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, as I said, the combination of the code coverage and the ability of creating skeleton for an existing project, that right there is sold.
Excellent. Look forward to the very positive blog entries about how we
Oh, we're gonna make it very negative.
kidnapped you from
stuck us in here for hours.
forced you to sit through a terrible Visual Studio
And they
presentation.
shut the lights out.
Thanks everyone. And just to reiterate, this stuff was shown at TechEd. We'll probably ship in the first half of next year. These bits are definitely alpha, new bits, so we apologize for some of the hiccups. We kind of threw this together at the last minute. That's it. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.